Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Kubefirst Live. Without my buddy Fred here, Kubefirst Live Unhinged. We love the Unhinged episodes, although it breaks my heart that my friend Fred is not here today. But I have great news. I have another dear friend with me today, my friend Dwayne McDaniel from GitGuardian. Dwayne, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Sure. I am very happy to be here. Kind of appropriate that I'm on an unhinged episode because I consider myself a little unhinged. So I'm a developer advocate. I these days work at GitGuardian. I've been doing developer advocacy since, well, this year marks actually a decade. 2014 was when I moved into doing this space, doing this job within the DevOps space. Moved into security here at GitGuardian, officially into the world of security in 2022. Though I've always been security minded all the way through for everything, even back in my Drupal days, Drupal being a very secure platform by nature and just very security minded people. So it was a natural fit, natural transition to get over to the security world officially. And I'm very, very happy to be here. And actually, that's how I know you is from giving talks about security at various events. And we met at CIVO Navigate earlier in 2024. And you gave me some of the best advice around IAC governance that made it into the core of one of my talks that I give around IAC security.
That's really kind of you to say. Yeah, I recall the conversation and the topic we were talking. It was right when we were at the point of trying to tell our audience about the different governance models for automated IAC, which is just kind of like, it's a pretty 300 level course. You have to kind of build your platform, and then you have to build some automation, and then you have to build some security. And maybe when you have all those pieces put together, you can start to think about the right way to protect your infrastructure as code assets. And it works really differently. The reason it became so interesting to us was when we started looking at Crossplane, which on the surface, like Crossplane is what we want to love so bad. It's GitOps, it's infrastructure as code as YAML. There's a lot to like about it. So we started exploring it, and we're just trying to figure out, because all along we had been using Terraform forever for everything. And we graduated from using it as a command line tool to automating it with Atlantis and having that nice governance model. And once we implemented that with Atlantis, with a Terraform being an infrastructure as code tool, having Atlantis provided this really nice way to take that command line tool that was typically on engineers' local hosts and elevate it to the platform level so that everybody has the transparency of the plans and the applies, and was the apply successful, and did the engineer need to do anything in order to make it become successful. And it provides this really nice human workflow right there in your pull request where you're making your change, so that you can adjust, so that you can inspect what the computer is going to do if you say I approve. Now in Crossplane, it just worked so differently because Crossplane doesn't care about that resource until it's on the main branch. So that opportunity to preview is a different game. And so the shifting of the human to protect your infrastructure as code becomes a requirement to build your policies to protect your infrastructure as code, which is just fascinating to me. So great conversation.
It is an important conversation as well. And I actually think that we're going to need to get to a point sooner than later. Like if you've already implemented IAC, sure. Thinking about this is a 300 level course, but I think we're going to get to a point not too far in the future where, hey, we're going to do this new project. It's going to be infrastructure as code is how we're going to roll it out. Let's do a tabletop exercise or some whiteboarding to understand how we're going to do this.
Right.
And it's not just the old cowboy coding days of let's just go make it work and we'll worry about the security piece later. Let's worry about governance later. we'll figure it out. No, it's like, no, we figured it out. Now let's go implement that.
Yep.
I really do feel, because I've seen that happen with so many other things where literally cowboy coding is a term we used to throw around and joke about in the WordPress and Drupal community before like dev test live environments became pretty standard. I was fortunate enough to work at Pantheon when that conversation was really going on. Like, it's no longer, you can't just throw a shoebox up and throw WordPress code at it. No, you really need a test environment. But before that, you really need a dev environment just to make sure all of that works with before you get there. But I think it's, yeah, if you don't have that conversation first, it's impossible to go from I got a shoebox to dev test live. That's a transition. But if you start with, hey, we're going to do this in this fashion, we can automate, we can test against, we can put all the security protections in place at the right time,
Right.
it changes the game and you become immediately more scalable and your code's more secure. I think we're going to see that same transition. It's just Kubernetes, let's face it, is confusing at first.
Yeah.
So just getting it working, getting from 0 to 1. Yeah. But we're getting to more organizations are already at 1 or 2.
I agree. And you know, we at Kubefirst are trying real hard to set people up to be at that point faster where, you know, you do have your infrastructure as code, and it is automated on day one. And you do have cross-plane in the box ready to go. And you can add Kubernetes policy manager or whatever policy manager you want, and add those protections to your IAC layer right in your GitOps driven infrastructure as code story from minute one. So if we end up successful at Kubefirst, everyone will be successful at that exact point. They'll start out at that square one where it's not a 300 level course anymore.
And the other interesting thing you said in there is really, I don't think you said it exactly that way, but the way I think in my head is that point of human review, the human in the loop.
Yep.
Where, at what point do you have the rights to do that thing, and who said it was okay?
Yeah.
That is one of the thorn in the side of every security team in the world that's trying to chase SALSA certification right now. Is like, how do we go about this attestation at literally every level for all of these security concerns?
Can we dig on that a little bit, Dwayne? So I was at my last company that I worked at, we were doing a lot of, it was like the earliest days of like the salsa movement, and attestations were just being added to open source projects. Where are we in the field in terms of that becoming more of a well-known standard in terms of project adoption of like I believe that I understand it correctly, that like if you're an open source project, it's your responsibility to provide those attestations for your salsa level. Do I understand that well, or can you help me have some clarity on that?
The closest analogy in another project that I think most people can relate to that have ever tried to implement it is any kind of authentication using OAuth.
Okay.
OAuth isn't really a framework. It's a set of standards. It's like, here's how you should, it's not, here's how you should go about it. It's like, here's what you need to get to. How you get there is really flexible. It's kind of up to you to figure that out along the way. And that also just like to say, Salsa, yes, it was developed with open source in mind, but we're seeing more and more adoption of these standards across the board. I'll point to Kent, what was his name? Blake Kaiser from Tenable wrote this beautiful article. You can share it in the show notes. I'll share it with you here on how they got to Salsa level 3 internally for the Nessus project.
Okay.
Which is a closed source. I mean, it's their proprietary product, but still they went through all the steps and like all the rigmarole along the way. It's not just something you can throw tech at. And that's the answer of where we are in the field. If it was something where I could just throw a switch, put this one block of technology in the mix and we're done, everyone would do it. That's where we'd be. It's like they adopted or they didn't. The issue is that Salsa is a set of ideals that you should get to, and things you need to, milestones you need to pass, but it doesn't like how you do that. So where are we? Ask 1,000 people, you get 1,000 answers.
Yeah. Yep.
and I wish there was a more coherent way to talk about that. But from my understanding, maybe somebody else has a better answer than that, better insight. Um, the one piece in there, and this kind of does tie back to where I work, and why I even read that in the first place, is the secrets are secret attestation that we've done our best for secret management, properly removing secrets. There's even a wonderful piece of that blog I'm mentioning where they talk about having to strip out secrets from their attestations themselves.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to put your environment variables into the document that says we did it properly. So it's like it's a weird cycle all the way down of like, did we make sure we didn't expose the wrong things in the wrong places? But one of those wrong places is the document that says we didn't do it.
Right.
Uh, it's fun to think about, but also kind of a nightmare from a practical perspective. Like here on the outside, it's like, that's fun to think about, but actually living through that, it's not something I have personally done. I don't want to ever claim credit for someone else's work. The only reason I know about it is people I talk to in the field, all these events and whatnot, and again, what I read on the internet. But yeah, it does go back to that piece, and that's what I wanted to talk about with human in the loop too. Of at what point do we say this person signed off that these machine identities were the way we should approach this? That we use long lived tokens, long lived passwords, long lived credentials of some form or another to make these machines talk to each other
Right.
and these workloads work. Who said that was okay? Who
Right.
said signed off? Because if we're in a Wild West day and every developer can just spin up whatever they want and put whatever they want into the mix and handle the secrets any way they want to. Yeah, you can live that way. We have been living that way, but you just take one look at bleeping computer or dark reading on any given day, and you'll see why that's a bad idea.
Right. Right. And help me with this, with the different salsa levels. What am I supposed to be interpreting when I hear about salsa level 1, salsa level 2, salsa level 3? Are they is it just kind of like different levels of attestation of how deep the security considerations have gone? Is that like what it is?
There are 4 levels, and like everything with 4 levels, I think 4 is aspirational at best.
Okay.
The 3 is pretty much the strongest I've ever heard anyone actually achieve.
Okay.
But it's achievable. And it basically boils down to first is used to have a documentation of how the whole process works.
Okay.
If an auditor came in and they said, "How does this work?" You could just, here's the file. Here's exactly how it all put together.
Okay.
Second level is tamper resistance, is of the build service. That the fact that you made this image, you can verify that that image was made following your process and no one tampered with it before they got to it. It solves, if we can just get everybody to level 2, we're in a really good spot because it solves a lot of that. Can I trust this build?
Yeah.
Because, well, we know we can trust that build because no one tampered with it. The third level kind of boils down to resistance to specific threats, and that is where any kind of attack that finds plain text credentials, that really comes in there.
Yeah.
That's also a level 2, but really I think better defined in level 3. Again, this is kind of who you talk to and which document you read. If you read the actual spec standard, I'm way oversimplifying because we don't want to turn this into just an hour-long discussion of just salsa levels. And then that fourth is, I can trust the thing I trusted because of this other thing that I also trust, and here's proof that I can trust both of those things. Which is an over way of saying that we've basically certified and attested to everything, all the provenance for every single piece, all the way down, every developer, everyone. It's kind of like PCI 4.0. If you were like at that level, like you've done all the work, you have processes in place. It's not just tech. Again, if it was just tech, we'd have already done it.
Right.
But it's how people work. We're really talking about a change in the way that DevSecOps is implemented. But we see that from the open source side, we can just see that as per project, which is great. And that's stuff that like SigStore, GitSign are really great at. And we're like, we can sign the thing, we can prove we signed the thing, and we can prove the thing that signed the thing is actually a real thing.
Yeah, yeah. And is it the responsibility of your policy engine in your cluster to assert that, like, forgive me for asking this way, but who cares? What system requires the salsa level to be at a certain level? Is that like an organizational policy that an org aspires to become level 2, and throughout their infrastructure, throughout their builds, throughout their containers, they try to get all the containers that go into their cluster to attain that level 2, and then you can claim that you're level 2 and mission accomplished? Is that like the mentality behind the movement toward level 2? Is it so that you know concretely that the stuff running in your cluster came from you?
I think it's a level of abstraction above that.
Okay.
How do I know I can use this? Is the answer, is
got
the
it.
question. How do I know? Oh, this person tested this once in this repo that's got 1,000 stars and hasn't updated in 6 months.
Yep.
Do I trust that? I don't know. Do I? Oh, here's their salsa level 3. They can prove it. We could, if a lawyer had to get involved, all the documentation holds up in court.
Okay.
Oh yeah, let's run that in production because I trust that 1,000%. The problem literally is the software supply chain. We're at a point in history where if you'd have told me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it, and I still find it a little unbelievable. One report I read was 93.8% of all code running inside of any application is third-party code.
Yeah.
Like we're no longer writing code to write code. We are gluing together components that someone else wrote. And if you take, there's thousands of examples of this, but pad left is the one that I remember the most distinctly from last decade. One guy just got like tired of maintaining it, and a malicious person took it over, and suddenly nobody could trust pad left. The problem is pad left is this long,
right?
And no one, it's literally the left padding on your screen. That's in literally every web application ever built.
Right.
It's hundreds of millions of deploys. So what happens then? Well, we found out you got to go replace it, and someone else took over, and there's a new pad left that took care of. But like more recently, we see extreme examples like Log4Shell or the XZ thing from earlier this year.
Yep.
Where XZ is, we could spend a whole hour just talking about that insanity. Like they made a fake profile. Who made a fake profile? Probably state actors, probably a country that I'm not going to name here for geopolitical reasons. Don't want to drag us into that fight. But somebody made a fake persona, and over the course of years, multiple actors acting through this persona put this backdoor in. And it was one guy at Microsoft is like, what is this calling? Who literally ran a diff and said, oh, that's not good.
Fascinating.
And found that out. But it's that, like, if you went to the XZ people and said, hey, where's your attestation that this build is good and I can use this image, and if I find this on the hub out there, it's fine.
Right.
And they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But still, XZ is in every thing of Linux ever shipped.
Crazy.
And Mac.
Yeah, I believe it.
Anyway.
So that was the fun little salsa aside. I didn't know I was going to get that today. That was fun.
I did not know we were going to talk about salsa either. I am, again, disclaimer, I am not an expert. Go read the salsa documentation.
Of course.
Go read that blog post from Blake over at Tenable, and you're going to be much more knowledgeable than just listening to me.
Right on. So the reason that I do want to have you on the show and talk is I want to talk Git secrets. We're a GitOps shop, Dwayne. And that means basically that we are cloning repos all day long. We use HashiCorp Vault in our internal system and in the system that we built for Kubefirst. Vault is always the secrets manager, and that affords us a lot of safeties, just because unlike, sealed secrets or whatever, there's just no fingerprint. Well, the goal was there would be no fingerprint of ever having a secret in your Git repository, because that's not where secrets go. Secrets go in Vault. That was our story. And we thought that that would probably be enough to keep secrets out of our Git repositories. But it's not, for so many different reasons. You might hire a new junior developer, comes in, doesn't pick up on the pattern. And before you know it, their Git credentials are stashed, or some private cert, some private anything could be pushed up to. And we're an open source project, so a lot of the repos that our developers could be in could go to the public space with a simple push. That risk is an old risk. That's a risk that I've carried since Git. And a lot of time, it's always kind of been a known truth that, like, yeah, don't put your secrets in Git. And what happens in practice, at least at our shop, is a lot of times you'll find a README that's like, these are the steps in order to do X, Y, and Z. And you'll be going through some walkthrough through a README to get things working. And there will be a little, spot where you have to run a bash command. And it's got a little token in there and it says replace with your API key. So you'll go to that README and paste your API key in and copy it into your terminal so that you have the exact command that you needed. And you'll forget that you put it there, and you'll continue down the README, and maybe you make some edits later on through that README when you find a typo or something later on, and it's time to commit that. You think that you're just submitting a typo pull request because you forgot that you changed that token a little ways up, and you just pushed your public key to a public space, and that's bad news. Can you just kind of take that story and tell me what kind of bad news that is? If it's like a API key to your cloud, for example, or an API key to your Git repository.
Yeah, definitely we can dig into some horror stories. Always not happy to tell them, but prepared to tell them. But that use case, so this is a fun fact. I was going to get into this a little bit later with screen share, but we put out this report every year called the State of Secret Sprawl.
Okay.
And last year we found 12.78 million hard-coded credentials just pushed out on GitHub Public. The number one file by a lot that we find these secrets in are .env files that accidentally get checked in.
I bet.
So it's not that people are doing this with the README. It's like, hey, I'm going to swap in for this env file and I'm just going to git ignore it, except they forget to git ignore it. Or they pick up the entire file with the Git code in it and move it over to somewhere else, to another system.
Yep.
If you just pick up and drag and drop from your file system, Git doesn't do any of the internal Git protection stuff. So Git ignore just stops working. So any files that you picked up, they just come along with it. Yep. We think that's how a lot of that happens. The other thing is internal scripts. Like, I'm gonna write this internal script, and well, yeah, the README told you to do that, but you're not gonna run the README. No, you're gonna go build the script and run that, and that's where you're gonna put that token. And then, oh, did I take that out? Nobody stops and thinks about that because it's 2 a.m. and you just finally debugged and it finally works. I think it's 2 a.m. That's how long it takes me to get things running.
Things start working around 2 a.m. for everyone.
It's weird. Yeah. It's like the internet wobbles on Wednesdays and code gets completed at 2 a.m. Something weird about those numbers. They're related somehow. But anyway, the horror stories. There's kind of an older one, but Toyota is one of my favorite examples of pushing to the wrong place and then not knowing you pushed to the wrong place. Back in 2022, they came out with a public apology, and on their Japanese website said, hey, what happened was we gave a subcontractor a job to maintain the T-Connect repo, which is the remote car start system and a help desk system. And it's a really cool tool. Like, I'm not knocking Toyota. It's a really cool system. But the subcontractor, for some reason, pushed part of this repo into a public repo under a different name. We didn't know. We didn't know to look for it. The problem is the biggest problem with this is that contained a data key or a data server key, and there were 296,000 rows of customer data in there. Mostly just emails and make a model of car, maintenance schedules, and things like that. But still, 296,000 customers. Oh yeah, and he did this 5 years ago in 2017, and it took a security researcher until this year to figure that out and tell us. Sorry, you're probably going to get fished. That was literally you can go read it in the Japanese website and translate it, but that's the summary.
Yeah.
Git is super awesome because you have a full copy of the project.
Yep.
Every commit back to the end of time. Git is also terrifying because everybody has a complete history of the project going back to the history of time. Adding a new git remote is one line, one command line. Git remote add, name the remote and the location. I don't know about you, but I have at least 2 terminals open at any given time. And I have pasted the wrong thing into the wrong place probably daily at this point in my life. Again, I don't make production code, so this isn't a worry about GitGuardian's internals. This is just me as a DevRel doing example code all the time.
Yep.
But it's so easy, just like we push to the wrong place with the wrong thing. Internal scripts. You might have heard of a company called Uber. Not to pick on them. I'm not a huge fan of their actual services, but I still don't think they should have got hacked. The Lapsus group attacked them in 2023 or 2022. Again, it was one person from Lapsus group claimed credit, but they bought a super admin's login credentials off the dark web. The story I heard, it was $20 to buy this admin login, but it was MFA'd, of course, as it should be. MFA is awesome, but it wasn't phishing resistant MFA. And by that, I mean, they could flood this person with requests, MFA requests.
Mm-hmm.
There's varying stories I've heard. I don't know which one's true, but eventually the button gets clicked to say, okay.
Yeah.
Not going to put any blame on anybody other than maybe his thumb slipped. That's my personal belief. Once in, oh, wow, I have access to his PAM, the private, what's that? Whatever PAM stands for, access management, privileged access management.
Got it.
System. Oh, wow, now I have access to all their systems. Hey, there's all these scripts laying around, and all of these PowerShell scripts contain hard-coded credentials because that's an internal document. No one's going to read this thing. Of course, we can just throw our credentials in there. Gave him lateral access to literally everything. He taunted HackerOne from within the HackerOne interface. He flooded their, you can find screenshots. He flooded their Slack full of messages saying, hey, I'm an attacker and I am in here now. Ha ha ha. And they thought it was a joke. The next person he talked to was the New York Times. That's the only reason we know that story. And then the next day they put up a bunch of ads on LinkedIn for new security engineers. True story. There's a lot of stories like that, but if you look at the MITRE attack framework, it's not surprising.
Right.
Like literally it's the fourth thing over after initial breach is lateral movement. And how do you move through systems? Yeah, you can exploit some crazy 0-day. You can become a first principles hacker who like just walks in and can look at the code and magically find all of these holes. I say magically, like it seems magical that they can look at code base like, oh, what if I did this and that would work?
Yeah.
But the vast majority are just following scripts, and the scripts say, hey, go look for passwords. They're probably going to be there. And if they are, then you get in, and then you just move on to the next thing until you exploit the data you want. Every pen testing course and a workshop I've taken so far has almost exclusively focused on, hey, there are secrets in here. You just got to find them, and then you're in.
Yeah. Yep.
So that is the problem set. Isn't that we're just messing up in those readmes? That is a good example, and that is a practical example that puts, I think, everyone on the same page that we all do stuff like that. But the reality is we get busy, and it doesn't even cross our minds that we maybe pasted to the wrong place, or GPOM, git push origin main, is like, that's an alias of mine.
Yeah.
I also aliased a few other things for other branches, and I'm not the best typer in the world. Like I type git dad more than I care to admit, but thankfully I have the git dad, not extension, but that program running. thanks Edward Thomas, who used to maintain npm. He wrote this thing called an extension for Git called Git Dad. If you type Git Dad instead of Git Add, it still is a Git Add, but it also tells you a dad joke. It curls I can has dad joke.
That's fantastic.
I made a derivative of that called Git Marge, because I will occasionally, for some reason, type Marge instead of merge. It'll still do the merge, but it also prints out an ASCII picture of Marge Simpson saying, "I just think they're neat." You can go find that on my GitHub.
That's fun for the whole family, right there.
It's fun. You should have fun with your Git repos. I firmly believe this. Anyway, I know for a fact I have pushed the wrong branch a couple times because I fat fingered it and I had aliases.
Yep.
And nothing I'm doing with like open source or like private like example stuff. So for me, there's not a huge threat level. But again, if I'm touching production code, oh man, yeah, there's all sorts of things that could go wrong with that.
Yeah, definitely. And so that particular use case, the first time I stumbled upon GitGuardian was at that last shop that I was working at. It was a really high compliance environment. They were doing a whole bunch of encryption of data for G Suite and Gmail and Salesforce and whatever else. So, FedRAMP high and or medium at least. FIPS 140-2 requirements everywhere, and just like they were pretty next level with their defending in depth. And they were using GitGuardian before I even showed up. It was the first time I came upon it. And you don't really fall in love with GitGuardian until you get your first email. But for me, it was an accidental push to a repository that was being monitored by GitGuardian. I got a nice email that said, "Hey, buddy, bad news. We think that we've detected a secret. This is what just got pushed to this repository. This is the commit. Here's the link to it. We think it's a secret. Does it look like a secret to you? Because if it does, we have some stuff that we're going to have to do together." And it was such a good user experience for me. Like, first of all, just having an engine, you could build some CI that maybe looked for secrets and maybe notified somebody. But what to do about it is the trouble spot. You've got maybe an intern who just got a job, right? And they're trying to impress people and they want everything to go well, and they just pushed a secret up to production. How do you deal with that? And so I thought that GitGuardian just did an exceptional job in that circumstance of holding your hand, saying, these are the risks. This is how it works. This is what you have to do to scrub it. If it's not an actual secret, if it's just some test value for a test that you wrote or something like that, then you can mark it and say, yeah, I know it looks like a secret. That one's actually okay. And you can allow list it. And I just thought that was an incredibly easy experience, so much so that I left that company. I started Kubefirst with my co-founder, Jared. And the very first thing that we did was we said, okay, well, let's take that lesson from the last company and install GitGuardian. And I couldn't believe how easy it was to set up GitGuardian. You can Google search GitGuardian, Git protection, and within probably one click, you're going to get to a nice GitHub application install, and you can just point it at your org and you're done. And I thought that was just great. I've been a fan ever since. But I'm sure that GitGuardian does just a whole bunch more than what I just described there. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to set up. And I did want to say that because that's basically all I had to do. And now I'm protected in ways. But I wanted to sort of just have you tell us the whole spiel, if you would, of like what GitGuardian does and how it works, and what kinds of protections it provides us.
So for those out in the audience who've never seen one of those emails, at this rate, it's hard to believe that you're a developer and you haven't. But a lot of people might not be developers or might be new to this thing. And don't keep just blaming new people, because everybody does this stuff all the time.
Everybody does. It's true.
GitGuardian has basically two sides to it, from the secrets management or secrets detection perspective. The first is our public monitoring product. That's actually how the product started. how the company started. Is there's two people in France doing research, our original founders, looking into something unrelated on GitHub, just looking at the API. If you don't know, api.github.com/ I think feed. I always look at timeline events. That's what it is, /events. It's a public feed of every public event that happens on GitHub. It's like 113 per second. So you don't even try to keep up. Somebody built a firehose .io something or other. Like you can just look at this in real time to stream past, and it kind of hurts your eyes to look at. Anyway, they were looking at this and they keep finding these credentials like, hey, are these real? So they would test them here and there in a non-obtrusive way and say, I think these are real. So they started calling companies. And a lot of companies were like, who are you? Why are you looking at our code? Go away. Some companies are like, thank you for telling us. Oh man, we got to fix this. And they fixed it. And so they built an engine that sent out emails to people and saying, you committed this code, problem with it. You should probably fix it. They called it the Good Samaritan program. In fact, we just wrote a blog post a few weeks ago on how we're using AI to improve that system. So we stopped sending out false positives. We already send out very few, but like to drop that and make sure we're sending it to basically the highest criticality of things. So if you find the old, you push a non-working, funky looking token that's probably like not anything, or we find that it's not valid, maybe you don't need to know. You pushed old code. Anyway, there's a whole blog post that goes into the details of that. But that's how we started on the public monitoring. Some of those companies came back and said, hey, can you hook up your engine to our internal stuff? And that's literally where our internal monitoring product came from, what we call our secrets detection platform. So if you go to our website, go up to product, that's the very first thing. And that is our bread and butter, what we think of. When people think of GitGuardian, they think of our internal monitoring tool and our public monitoring tool. So those are the first two things they think of.
For sure.
So if I can share my screen, I could just walk through here to make this not super long.
I would love
yeah, but I'll do just a quick presentation, quick demo of the product, and then happy to answer any questions. Just heads up, one of those real things. Someone's gonna ring my buzzer here, and in the next 10 minutes, and I need to go hit it. So because I'm getting delivery of some pepper plants, and I got to go just let them into the mailroom. So just heads up.
No worries at all. No worries. I'll keep the crowd
real-time event.
I swear I will. I swear I will.
Real-time event. All right. But nobody wants to leave their keys out in public. Nobody wants to have their keys in the front door, and we do it all the time. Every day, we keep putting more secrets out there. And like I said earlier, like we put out the State of Secret Sprawl report every year. Link to that down in the show notes. But you can go download it for free. It doesn't even require an email. We publicly just post it. We think it's a public need to know information. Last year, unfortunately, we found that 7 out of every 1,000 commits exposed a secret. The biggest problem, in our opinion, is this one. The fact you pushed a secret and somebody lets you know and you fix it, no big deal. I was going to tell you, my first email I ever got from GitGuardian was before I worked for them. I got a new machine and thought, I'll be clever. I don't need to replace my SSH keys. I'll just transfer over my SSH keys and I'll bounce it through a private repo. What could go wrong? I pushed it to a public repo and I got an email that said I did that. And the first words out of my mouth were like, that's not a public repo. Went to GitHub, followed the link from the email to my GitHub repo. I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
And I wrote it an SSH key. Nothing bad happened. I hope nothing bad happened. It's been years and nothing bad happened. Anyway, so this number here, this isn't cumulative. This isn't additive over years. This is per year. So we found 10 million out in 2022, almost 12.8 million here in 2023, 2024. We'll see what those numbers look like. Hopefully they'll level off a bit or go down a little bit on GitHub Public specifically for a few things that they changed on GitHub. But we'll see. The numbers right now aren't really pointing to a better future, but hopefully one day this will go down and we'll start working on other problems. That's right. So last year we saw that root cause of breaches was reported as being the number one root cause of breaches was leaked or stolen credentials for like the first time ever.
Yeah,
it surpassed. That's actually come back down a little bit according to Sophos but according to CISA and according to the Verizon DBIR. Human elements are like 63% of the problem set now, but a lot of that points to the Move It problem last year, the Move It breach last year, which if you weren't affected by Move It, congratulations. You're one of the few people on earth that wasn't. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Google Move It breach and you'll be horrified. So there's some big challenges that we see in this problem set. And you already addressed this first one up front. It's like secret managers and vaults are awesome. And if you use them 100% of the time, exactly as they're intended, for all of your use cases, you're set. The bigger problem, I think, isn't that you have juniors coming on that don't know your ways. The bigger problem is you inherit code bases constantly.
Yep.
Acquisitions are a real thing, and like that brings code bases. Like, the only reason I'm calling to call them out is because I just know how many companies they've acquired. Because the old job I used to have, I was much more interested in them. Is the company Pfizer. I don't know anything about their code bases at all. This is not a thing about their code. It's just they are an acquisition company now. That is how they make money. They no longer do their own research. They just buy other companies that already did the medical research and the pharmacy research. So they must have inherited at this point thousands of code bases.
Yeah.
There's no way on earth they could account for that with like, unless everybody used the same vault system all the way through. They didn't. Not picking on them, not saying there are any kind of problems with them at all. I just know them as a giant acquisition engine.
Yep.
There's many other companies like that. They're just the first one that popped to mind. That's the biggest problem, is that you can't guarantee that in the past, other people that wrote code that you'd inherited have used this. It's not just code, though. This is the other piece where we're getting more and more as we're expanding as a service. It's all the places around your code where the conversation happens or the build happens. Like learning how to extract secrets from Jenkins was an eye-opening experience when I did that workshop. I'm like, you think they're safe because yeah, it's hidden, right?
Right.
That's Jenkins, though. You can ask Jenkins to do a lot of weird stuff. So your CI systems, Jira, like having those conversation around your code, it's very easy to like, hey, this didn't work. Here, use this credential. Just put it in a comment. Who's gonna get into Jira? Well, don't ask Cloudflare that, because their Jira got breached because of the Okta breach last year.
Right.
And they got Bitbucket, Jira, and Confluence. So anything secrets in there, they said they rotated over 5,000 secrets in a single day as a result of that breach. Not a good day.
Yeah, that's a bad
But
day.
knowing that someone put them there in those conversations in Slack is going to give you that heads up that, hey, we need to do something better about this. And that remediation problem. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say here. The biggest problem that we see is this one, the 90% of the secrets. It's 91 point, I forget. You can download the thing, the exact number, but it's over 90% of secrets that we see is valid out in the world that we can quickly test in a non-intrusive way are still valid 5 days later, even after we send the email. It's not that the way we've been talking about this is not that we have a secret detection problem. Detection is the easiest part of this entire game. We have a remediation problem because that rotation is just hard. So we built this end-to-end solution. Not going to walk through everything here. This isn't a full-blown demo. We do full-blown demos. Feel free to sign up for one of those with us. But I'm just going to show this slide, and I don't want to spend 3 hours with this. But we're monitoring, and we're monitoring the right places. So your Git repos across GitHub, GitLab, Azure, Bitbucket. The things we're looking for, we have right now over 400 types of detectors, both generic and specific kinds of APIs. The vast majority of that, we can do some kind of non-intrusive call to like check and see if it works. For like JOTs, JWTs, or bearer tokens, or just random encrypted strings that look like passwords, we can't really test those to make sure they're really valid. But our engine isn't just doing detection and pattern matching. We have a whole pre-validation and post-validation stuff. So if it looks like a README that says, for instance, like use a password that would look something like this, and it would be like, this is obviously an example password. We're not going to report that because that's obviously not something you need to know. So we keep those false positives really, really low. We're enterprise tuned. And like you said, you can continue to tune it as you use it. So, hey, this is an example password we use for all of our systems. We're going to market it as ignore it, and it's going to be ignored forever on in our system.
Right on.
alerting, we send those emails and we all get 1,000 emails a day on all of the things. I think I've gotten 40 emails just since this meeting started. But we also can tie into webhooks, Slack, Teams, other systems. But that custom webhook means we can tie into any kind of alerting system, Seam, SOAR, whatever have you, all very automatically. Just deliver the JSON package and kick off that remediation process. Remediation, this is the one thing I would like to show on the screen. And then one of the things that sets us apart in the world is we have this core concept organizationally called an incident. And at first you're like, okay, yeah, it's an incident. What big deal? Big whoop. But like I said, detection isn't the problem here. It's what do you do with that information? And this is why we are a platform. This is one of the reasons we're not just an open source tool. There are open source scanners out there that if you just want a plain text list or a CVE, or not CVE, CSV of results, you can go scan with those things and they'll give you a giant 30,000 page laundry list of all the problems you have. But if you want to actually tackle that in a cohesive, scalable enterprise way, this is what we built. So we have these concept of the incident. So I can look at, hey, these are when they happened. This is what this kind of secret involved. Is it still present? Can we tell if it's valid? In this case, this Slackbot token, we know it's no longer valid. So I feel very comfortable sharing that on screen. We know who did it. And this is our internal demo thing. So this is safe. Trust me. We know the severity if it's known. In this case, it's not known. Here we know it's a high severity because even though it's no longer valid, this is still present in the Git history, and it's an AWS temporary key, which points to various things happening in your system that you could exploit if you knew what you were doing. Show that it's triggered, and then we can look at each individual incident. I'll show the Slack bot since, again, I have it in privacy mode, so I'm not showing the actual thing here. But I can assign this to a team member like myself if I wanted to. I'm not going to. Even modify the severity. It's like, no, we got to fix this right now. We'll put this as critical, and we got to get this fixed. And there's a record of me doing that. Presence and history, good. It's not on public that we can see. And I can work here. And one of the most important steps in remediating anything is talking to this person. How do I talk to them? Well, I go get them on Slack. I can go try to communicate this. With GitGuardian, you can just share it with them. If they're part of you trust them to look at your workspace for your security tools, sure. If you don't, and this is one of my favorite things in the world, start up a new, excuse me, just one second, put this over here, a new incognito tab. So I'm not logged into nothing. Let's kill that. No, but, all right. And there's the incident.
Neat.
Hey, give me your feedback on this. But I trust this guy. I trust this developer. So go ahead and tell me if you're going to ignore this or not, if we can remediate that or not. Go ahead and ignore it in this case. But I'm not going to. But let me get over here. Back to share. I don't know why it's doing this nested thing, not letting me get with a full screen. Chrome's weird sometimes. All right, I'm going to turn this off. And just like that, bam, it's no longer available. So very safe way to work and communicate. And that's the remediation side of it. There's analytics, of course. And then we can extend this whole platform to the terminal. And that is over here. And I'll do it later. Clear. And then I'll do git GG shield. GG shield. I love typing in front of people. We have the command line tool GG Shield, so I can scan all of this stuff locally for secrets. We have an SEA product, we have honey tokens, we have IAC scanning, has my secret leaked. I have a bunch of stuff, but not bogged down for this conversation. Just know that we have a command line tool, and the coolest part of it is we have pre-commit hooks, which is to me super important. So GG Shield, Shield. I know it's really small. A G Shield install, say mode local, and just like that, I've created a pre-commit hook that will automatically stop the commit from happening if I added a secret.
Right.
During that commit.
If you're working in a public repo, that is your last line of defense. Yep.
My favorite part of this is once you set it, you can set, I set this locally, just show it. I can set this globally and do this across all my repos, across my machine, no matter what I'm working on, the same way. And if I can prevent it, then I don't have to ever remediate it. If I can remediate it right there, when it's the least expensive, yeah, it's 5 extra minutes at worst to like go set up the vault, call and test it. Sure. But that 5 minutes there is going to save us an hour down the road, and it's
Yeah.
going to save us millions of dollars in case we did get breached.
Right.
So that is our tool. That's the quick, super high level demo of what I wanted to show, like what we're solving. There's 1,000 ways I could talk about this, but ultimately, if you're an open source user, this is free for you. If you are a single developer, this is free for you. If you are a team under 25, this is free for you. We make our money on enterprises. Our largest customer has 30,000 developers. We are enterprise tuned, but we think everyone has the absolute human right to find the secrets in their code and keep them out of public view. Knowing that all code eventually will probably become public. It just nature of the beast. ChatGPT is probably trained on a lot of private repos, I think. That's a whole political conversation we shouldn't have. But just assume that your code is eventually going to be seen by something that shouldn't see it. Not having secrets there goes a long way to getting you to like salsa level 3 or just making you more secure as a company.
You're right on, right on. Well, Dwayne, thank you for that demo. And to your entire organization, thank you for the service that you provide to the open source world, to small companies. We're kind of one of those small companies that gets to benefit from your
That's the book I was talking about.
please. At Kubefirst, we're a pretty small shop. We're a GitOps shop, but our responsibilities, just because of the craft and what we do, is pretty severe, and we can't be making mistakes, and we have to act as if we were a full-blown enterprise company anyway. And the free tier that GitGuardian provides us lets us treat our infrastructure and our organization and our secrets the way that we need to, as if we have enterprise needs from a secret standpoint, while affording us the opportunity to grow in that position. And so I can't thank you guys enough for giving us that level of protection on your free tier. The ease with which you can get it added to your Git organization is literally quite ridiculous. It couldn't be easier. And please.
I just want to point out, a lot of companies put out a free tier that's like a limited version.
Yeah.
There are a couple business specific things you don't get. Single sign-on. You can't set up like SAML with the free version, but it's things like that. The functionality to actually stop secret sprawl, that's the exact same tool. Like you're using the same tools our largest customers are.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's well said. We've reaped the benefits. We've gotten those emails from GitGuardian too many times. You would think that by now we would install that hook, and we and then there's always another developer. So I think that the service that you guys give to be able to be that watchdog across the organization. Any new repositories, you don't need to set up new rules, new GitHub actions, new anything like that. Like, you one time set it and forget it with GitGuardian, and you can forget that you installed it until you get that email. And then as Dwayne was explaining to us, the most important thing to do when you get that email is to mitigate that secret leak. So do be sure to read the details. And that's the other thing that I loved so much about GitGuardian, was their hand-holding of you through that process, so that it was obvious that, according to the industry leaders in the space about that literally built a company around this craft, they are guiding you on the right way to mitigate the secret the right way. It's not just a matter of, well, I'm just going to delete the secret and push it back up. It's more involved than that, because Git keeps that Git history. So, but if you follow the easy to follow docs, it's all really easy to get your secrets mitigated and feel like you're in a good posture again.
One last thing I'd like to just throw out there. So I am developer relations here at GitGuardian, devrel, DEVREL at gitguardian.com. If you have any questions whatsoever technical, if you have sales questions, just go email sales. But if you have like general questions, if you're a free tier user and you want to just talk to somebody here, feel free to hit us up, devrel@gitguardian.com. Other side of that is we do see, and I've said it several times here, if there's just a technology we can throw at something and solve the problem, let's just do that. But the security really, I think, has three legs to this any given good solution. Awareness and like the training aspect, like get people aware that the problem we're trying to solve, process in place to like, this is how we should handle this, and then tools. And all three overlap and are interrelated. You can't have processes without tools to implement or train people about them, and all the way around. Tools themselves, if you just throw a tool in the mix without any processes around it, good luck. You're not going to get any results. We're really happy to help with the awareness side of it. So if you'd like us to give some kind of internal presentation or invite us to give lunch and learn or something, like make a little demo video of like, hey, here's how GG Shield works, we are happy to work with you no matter what capacity, at what level you're at, help you just along that security journey, because we see this problem set as one of the most important critical things we have to fix if we're going to keep going forward in technology.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And thank you for that offer to our audience. I do encourage all of the Kubefirst group, if you're interested in GitGuardian, there couldn't be a better group to reach out to. They're just a good group of folks in the industry. So, Dwayne, thank you for coming on our show today. It was really a pleasure having you on, talking a little bit of security with you. And
a little long-winded, but pleasure to be here. Just really happy to talk.
Long-winded is what we do. And I typically have a dad joke, and I confess that I came ill-prepared again. It's as if I have a whole bunch of stuff going on. So
get dad and
yeah, let's do it. Maybe we should ask the robot for a dad joke. I'm
just going to go to icanasdadjoke.com.
Go for it.
You can just curl icanasdadjoke.com and it just returns the joke.
Give me a joke.
Where did you learn to make ice cream?
Where did I learn to make ice cream?
Sunday school.
An ice cream dad joke on Kubefirst's 5th birthday. You couldn't do any better. We didn't even set it up for that. That was just honest universe coming in our direction. Dwayne, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. We hope to have you on sometime soon.
Yeah, let's come back, talk about some other subject I'm very little versed in. Let's talk about guac at that point. We'll come back and guac and SCA.
It's a date. I'll see you there.
All right, man.
Dwayne, thank you for everything. Bye, everybody.
Cheers.